All right. Good morning. Good morning. We are coming live to you here at the top of the morning. It's 11:55 a.m. and we are getting started a little bit early this morning, going into the afternoon because we actually have a showing in Hunters Creek. And ooh, ooh. So Hunters Creek is a little over 30 years old. So pretty much, you know, we're wondering why has Hunter Creek, right, a 35-year-old neighborhood in South Orlando, how, why, and how has it held its value through every boom and bust, right? And what is quietly telling us? What is it telling us about where Florida's smart money is moving next, right? So, welcome back to the Florida Growth Watch. We're actually going to be doing a showing this afternoon in Hunters Creek. And, this is where we're watching the cranes, moving trucks, and money to show you where Florida is actually headed as a whole. And essentially, Hunters Creek is in the South Orlando market, just above the loop area of Kissimmee. And we can go ahead and call Hunters Creek one of the most successful communities in Florida. There's actually a sign when you're going north on John Young Parkway from the Kissimmee area. You can see there's a sign that says the 21st or 22nd best place or city in the United States of America. So it did receive that honor at some point. Um, it's in the 32837 zip code on the edge of Meadowwoods, just minutes from the 417. So easy highway access. And pretty much, this is the question that I want you to sit with this morning, right? And going into the afternoon. There are neighborhoods all over Florida that have both boomed and busted, right? They shot up in 2005, collapsed in 2008, and some of them never really came back. And then you have Hunters Creek. So Hunters Creek is a community that started construction back in 1986 and has held its value for almost 4 decades, right? So homes in Hunters Creek still roughly trade in that 350 to $650,000 band, um, and they resell fairly often, and people genuinely want to move into Hunters Creek. So it's not a matter of whether or not Hunters Creek is nice. It's what did Hunters Creek get right that can be used as a map for the rest of Florida's growth, right? And with that, we're going to give you a little bit of the anatomy, right? So Hunters Creek is about 6.5 square miles in the southwest corner of Orange County. So the furthest point southwest of Orange County, which includes Orlando. And just so you know, Hunters Creek is not written into any addresses. It is still considered Orlando, Florida. It's just a different zip code. The same way Lake Nona is not written into any addresses either. It's Orlando, Florida, and then the zip code that it is. So, pretty much, uh, 6.5 square miles, right? Roughly with 35 single family neighborhoods, apartments, condos, townhomes, all in one master plan, right? And that's the key phrase is the master plan community. It's the whole story, right? Because that means that over 40 years ago, somebody sat down, right? And they said, we're going to do this. We're going to put the parks here, schools here, commercial here, and we're going to protect it with standards, high standards. and they definitely stuck to it, because even Hunters Creek is the first community that I heard of personally with a POA instead of an HOA, right? And that's pretty much why it still works, right? It wasn't luck. These are parks that people actively and actually use, right? HOA standards that are keeping the community tight, along with the quick access to State Road 417, the Greenway, and its proximity to all of the job engines, which includes Disney and the tourism corridor to the west, the airport, and Lake Nona's medical city to the east. And pretty much you can get to work, excuse me, get to all the good schools, and get to the things you love quickly from Hunters Creek. And the neighborhood, it's protected. The value holds because of that reason. And that lesson is hiding in plain sight, right? Now, if we zoom out a little bit, because there's not too much development going inside of Hunters Creek anymore, but if we zoom out, because this is the part that gets exciting, right? What's happening around it, right? So South Orlando is continuing to accelerate, and it all comes back around to the infrastructure, right? So the infrastructure that's coming in around this exact spot includes the Central Florida Express Authority having spent the better part of a decade widening the 417, right? Just a little bit at a time, right? One segment at a time. And then there's the planned Osceola Parkway Extension. So it's roughly a 9-mile toll road designed to connect 417 to Boggy Creek Road down in Osceola County. And that basically opens up the east to west movement for one of the fastest growing pockets in the region, right? We spoke about Osceola County's growth yesterday. And over on 528, they're adding lanes from Goldenrod toward Innovation Way right through the Lake Nona Medical City growth area. All right. So um, the city of Orlando even approved a new 380-acre development district, right, called the Dowden Central CDD. So Dowden runs across Lake Nona, across Narcoossee Road, and pretty much that's going to lay infrastructure ahead of the growth in Southeast Orlando, right? So Hunters Creek is in Southwest, but it's all going to be connected to the growth that's happening in Southeast, which is Lake Nona going into that North St. Cloud area. So, why would this matter to a homeowner in Hunters Creek? Pretty much what it boils down to is the infrastructure is it's like a tide, right? And it's going to lift everything around it. So the roads being expanded, lanes widening those existing roads, and the connectivity is what turns a nice neighborhood into a neighborhood at the center of everything. So when you build the roads before the rooftops and before the plazas, you're protecting the commutes and the value, right? And then the people keep on coming. So the Orlando Metro, we spoke about St. Cloud's growth yesterday, but the Orlando Metro added almost 38,000 residents in just a single year, which makes it the second fastest growth among the nation's 30 biggest regions, behind only Austin, right? So Orange County itself is now over 1.5 million people. But here's the nuance I want relocation buyers to catch and investors to really hear, right? Within the metro, a lot of that growth is pushing outward into Osceola and Lake counties. So, like I said, number one, Lake County's one of the biggest counties that is actually incentivizing investors for like short-term rentals and really embracing short-term rentals, right? And what can be done out there. And then as I mentioned, any and everybody who's not wanting to stay and pay Lake Nona values is falling into the northern St. Cloud region, right? So those are just small examples of how um the what would you call it? Not overgrowth, the uh it running over, or essentially what a phrase that I have used for St. Cloud is like St. Cloud is catching Lake Nona's crumbs, right? In a good way. Um so what do we got here? Okay, so Osceola and Lake County. So Lake County being north, Osceola County being south. And the reason for that is because of affordability and quick accessibility. So although it's more affordable, you still get the benefits and the perks of being close to Lake Nona, within reach of Orlando, right? So South Orlando sits right on the seam of that, right? So what I would say it like this: what Lake Nona being newer in development is to St. Cloud, Hunters Creek is to Kissimmee. And you've got the established value and schools of Orange County on one side, and then the affordability driven boom of Osceola right next door, right? So bringing it home for the three kinds of people who are watching right now, right? If you're relocating, Hunters Creek and South Orlando are a master class in what to look for. And that's basically the master plan protection, the school quality, the highway access, and the proximity to jobs. So Hunters Creek is probably one of those areas where I would still say you can be roughly around 25 to 30 minutes to everything. um and it all depends on the hour of the day, right? But with that said, don't just buy a house, buy a location that's been engineered to hold up for the long term, and Hunters Creek definitely covers that. If you're an agent, the way you become a trusted advisor is this, right? Aside from just pulling up a listing, which anybody can do, having the ability to explain why a neighborhood holds its value, um, or what certain parkway extensions means, or highway extensions mean for a client's 10-year equity picture. If you have someone who's looking more into the long term and not just making a quick pivot, right? That would be your differentiator as far as what you have to offer people within your network. And if you're an investor, you definitely want to be paying close attention, because the apartment market is turning the corner, right? Absorption is becoming positive again, and the construction pipeline has contracted about 40% of its from its peak, and rents are setting up to recover in the latter part of the year and going into 2027. So population is definitely still pouring in, is definitely trickling in. Supply is slowing down, and the setup for multi family investors is definitely happening now. Um, so the long and short of it all is that Hunters Creek is not the flashiest neighborhood. It's winning because it was planned, it was well thought out, and well executed. And everything around South Orlando is being planned right now, with tons being poured in, not tons, let's just say billions in roads and infrastructure continuing to be poured into to it all. And if you want to understand where Florida is going, this is the blueprint that you want to study, right? Places that has all of the fundamentals, right? And if you want to deep dive beyond that, we'll help you to do exactly that. So we're gonna head on over to Hunters Creek now as we speak. We're gonna execute our 1 o'clock afternoon appointment and then prepare for the new week. So again, I'm Robert Kenneth Murillo with Aurora Real Estate. This is Florida Growth Watch, and we'll see you again tomorrow.